Hello, everyone. Welcome to Super Monday. And this is part of the Be Well series. My name is Joy Leng, and I'm a positive hypnotherapist supporting people with strengths-based whole brain living. So, this is the coffee chat, strengths-based coffee chat, where we talk about your strengths development. So, today we have a special guest who is joining us for this episode. So when I was assessed for my accreditation in strengths profile, I was blessed to be allocated with this really kind, gentle, and very supportive assessor, which is Julie McCall. And we have since become fast friends, and she's this amazing woman who is just so supportive of my work endeavors. So I'm happy to have her today to join us to talk about the most exciting quadrant in a strengths profile, which is your hidden secret superpowers, your unrealized strengths. Now, Julie is a positive psychology coach, trainer, and facilitator. So she specializes in positive psychology, leadership, and strengths team development. So in addition to this, she also lectures part-time in the University College Cork in Ireland on the Masters in Coaching Psychology. Julie has a master's in positive psychology and is an accredited strengths, emotional intelligence, and health and wellness coach. Her work has taken her to the US, Europe, Asia, and South Africa. And she has been a panel guest as a positive psychology specialist on the Irish program Today Show. So please, without further ado, help me to welcome Julie. Hi, Julie. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Joy. It's lovely to see you again.
Yes, it's awesome to have you back on the show. This time, talking about a rather different topic. We're going to zoom into
Oh,
the
superpowers.
the secret superpowers. So
Yes.
before we dive in,
Mhm.
you know the drill. Give me
Yeah, I
a
know
fun fact.
Fun fact. So my fun fact for today is that my dog is going to be a dad in 9 weeks' time. So he's going to have pups. Woo!
Oh my God,
So
that's
I'm going to
exciting.
be a grandmother to some pups. So that's very exciting. So the challenge is not to. We already have a dog, so the challenge is not to have one of his pups. But I'm guessing that will be a challenge that will be a little bit too challenging for us, and I'm sure we'll have a pup in our house in 9 weeks, which is like having a baby, unfortunately.
Yes. Well, when you see their cute faces, let's see what happens.
I'll send you a pic when they're born. Yes.
Yes, please. That'll be awesome. Okay, so let's dive straight in.
Mhm.
Julie, perhaps you can start off by sharing with us what is strengths profile?
Okay, so strengths profile, if you haven't come across it before, is an assessment that was designed and developed by Capfinity. And basically what strengths profile does, it measures 60 strengths against 3 dimensions: performance, energy, and use. So it's a self-assessment. And depending on how you answer those questions in relation to performance, energy, and use, you'll be given a profile which gives you 4 quadrants. And in those 4 quadrants, there's a detail of your realized strengths, and they're things that give you energy, performance, and you use frequently. Learned behaviors are things that you are really good at and are still a strength, but perhaps de-energize you. Weaknesses are things that we've all got weaknesses, so they're things that we're definitely not good at. And our unrealized strengths, that are things that are giving us energy, but we don't perhaps use that frequently. So they're the opportunity to grow, and there are superpowers, as you were saying earlier, Joy.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. Okay, so with that backdrop, we're just going to zoom in straight to the unrealized strength, which is one of the 4 quadrant in the strengths profile. So, Julie, what does it mean in a strengths profile when they say unrealized strength?
So an unrealized strength is something that you are good at, so you perform well at, and people tell you that, and it gives you energy, so you get a buzz from using this. But perhaps you're just not giving yourself the opportunity to use this strength. So when we think about our unrealized strength, as you said, these are really our superpowers. This is a hidden chest, a hidden treasure chest, and this is really our opportunity for growth. So when we see our profile, we need to be asking ourselves the question, how can I dial up those unrealized strengths? Which of those unrealized strengths would I really, really love to use more? Rather than should use, which would I love to use?
Okay, so how can we tap on unrealized strength?
How can we tap into them? Well, I think it's about tapping into that intrinsic motivation. So as I said, rather than thinking to yourself, which should I use? Really think to yourself, which excites me? Which of those unrealized strengths motivates me? Which of those can I see myself dialing up and having meaning? So it's really about thinking sometimes about maybe, can I use them in a different context? Sometimes, for example, we only think about using our strengths in a particular context, maybe in work or maybe in our home life. So if I'm using my unrealized strengths only in the workplace, can I dial them up in my personal life? Or maybe I need to think about can I use them for myself? Often we think about using our strengths for other people, but we don't necessarily think about turning those unrealized strengths towards ourselves. So to give you an example, I often see compassion in the unrealized strength quadrant.
Oh gosh, I was going to say that. That's a huge one. That strength is always external.
It's always external, and we're always being kind to other people. But perhaps can we dial that unrealized strength, and can that compassion be used towards ourselves? So that's one way of looking at that. Another example would be service. Similar to compassion, we're always serving other people. How about serving ourselves for a change? And connector, I love, as you know, Joy, I'm a connector.
Yes.
I'm always bringing people together. But what about using, if I thought about myself, how could I use my connector for myself? So, there are some suggestions and examples of how you can actually look at using your unrealized strengths in a different context, or perhaps using them for yourself for a change.
I love this piece. Thanks for highlighting that, Julie. I think we really need to think about that the strengths is not just to serve and support other people. It's also for ourselves, our own well-being, our own flourishing. It can go both directions, but somehow we're just so fixated with supporting other people. We tend to neglect ourselves.
Yeah, and of course we want to support other people. We wouldn't be in this business if we didn't want to support other people. But sometimes we just need to. We're all, I suppose, interested in helping other people, but sometimes self-care is also important.
Indeed, I think the self-care is the first step to helping other people.
Well, absolutely. We talk when you get on a plane. Everybody, the air hostess always says, put your own oxygen mask on first before you help the person next to you. So that goes for ourselves as well.
Yes, indeed. So, would you be able to share with us a story of any of your client with his or her unrealized strength, how he managed to tap on it?
Yes, I mean, the most common unrealized strengths are around legacy and mission, and legacy often comes up. And when I was thinking about sharing stories, I was just thinking about past clients, and there's some lovely stories around how you can tap into your unrealized strength of legacy being what you want to leave behind. And one of the stories which I thought was lovely, I was working with a client, and we were chatting about which of his unrealized strengths would he love to dial up. And when he thought about it, he looked at legacy and he said, you know what, I would love to write my son a letter. He said, I'd love to write my son a letter and tell him about my experiences and tell him about all my life lessons. And I want to give that letter to my son. So I want him to read it now, but I also want to know that when I'm not here, and he wasn't thinking about dying anytime soon, so it wasn't that situation, but he just wanted to have something that when his son wanted to think about him, his dad, he could look at the letter and see what his father had written to him and gain insight and motivation and inspiration from that letter. And I just thought that was absolutely lovely. I thought that was absolutely lovely. Another story to tell you was another client. She had writer as a realized strength, and she had narrator as an unrealized strength. And when we chatted about what she wanted to do, because often what we can do is combine our realized and unrealized strengths. And what she said, I've always wanted to write a book. So I have writer and I have narrator there as an unrealized strength that I can dial up. So narrator is about telling stories. So she decided she wanted to write a book. So that was really exciting for me to work with her to achieve that. Now, that started some years back, but I'm delighted to report that she's actually finished the book, and she has,
Well,
which is really exciting. And she actually sent me a text to say, I've sent it to the publisher. So, and thank you so much. So she really, really tapped into that intrinsic motivation to say, what do I really want to do? And that's what she did. And hopefully she'll get it published. So they're two examples of how you can dial up your unrealized strengths.
wow. Thank you, Julie, for sharing such inspiring stories. Like these are
Yes.
really stories from the heart.
Yes.
Even in my experience coaching and training people, we always, in the end, go to this place that is so sacred and so deep. People will think about, their legacy and what they want out of their life. So
Yes.
one of my top strengths, realized strengths, legacy and mission. When I
Okay.
use my unrealized strengths to help support this realized strength, I think it really bring things to a very different dimension, and it helps me to keep a growth mindset, keep an open mind, even
Yes.
though it's unfamiliar, but just play around with it and see what happens.
Yes. And actually growth is another great example of an unrealized strength I often see. And going back to the using it for yourself, often people think about growth and think about, how they could dial that up. And that can be around their personal growth. What do I need to do for myself? How can I upskill myself? How can I develop my knowledge? What do I need to achieve that? So again, that's another great example, actually, growth. Yeah.
Awesome. I always loved how this nice buzzing energy I get whenever we get into a strengths-based conversation. It's always energizing. Just the fact that you're talking about what is your strength, what you're good at, there's
Yes.
something very alluring about such conversations.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing is, when you're probably seeing this yourself, Joy, that when people talk about their strengths, they're very animated. You can
They light
actually,
up. Yeah.
yes, they light up, they smile, they're very animated, they talk faster because they're very excited. But when we're talking about our weaknesses, we're not very energized at all. So you can really see, and that's called strength spotting. So you can really pick up on people's strengths and notice how they're communicating. Will give you an idea whether or not they're talking about their strengths. Yeah.
Yes, most definitely. So if someone finds, if someone is not sure of what are their unrealized strengths, then
Yes.
what should the person do?
Say that again. If they're not sure
Sure,
of,
what are their unrealized strengths?
as in, if they're not familiar with them, is so they don't resonate with them.
Um, if no, if as in like they have no clue that these are their unrealized strengths because it's unrealized for them
Oh,
for
right.
the time
Okay.
being. Yes.
Oh,
So
okay.
what should
So
the people do?
what to do with them? Yeah. Well, if they're no clue, I mean, I think that the first thing is to actually ask them, do they understand what that means to them? So often with people, when you're going through their profile, the term may be unfamiliar. So the first thing to do is to actually just simply read the definition, because what I understand let's take, because we were chatting, weren't we, about your unrealized strength of innovation. Your
Yes.
interpretation of innovation might be one thing, but actually when you read the definition, then that person says, now that I've read the definition, I now understand what that means. So now it is actually, that makes sense to me. So now I can think about what I need to do to actually dial that unrealized strength up.
So this question is, I guess, pretty tied up with the next question, which is I find my unrealized strengths unfamiliar and how
Yes.
I can work on it. This
Yes.
question is really inspired because of my own experience with the unrealized strength when I took the profile again in April.
Yes.
And what
Yes.
popped up was everything was everything shifted.
Yes.
Suddenly, my unrealized strength, my first unrealized strength was writer in December, but I
Okay.
think I have realized it, so it moved away. And
Okay.
what replaced it was innovation. And I
Mm-hmm.
could not resonate with the word,
Yes.
much less associate it with myself. So I was
Mm-hmm.
very motivated, but I was bewildered at the same time.
Yes.
Like, I don't know what to do with this. And I really
Yeah.
want to work on it. It's my number one unrealized strength. But it was so challenging. I couldn't feel it. Like,
Yeah.
and my mind went blank. Like, how do I do this? So that
Yeah.
was a bit of a challenge for me at that point.
Yeah. I mean, just to pick up on 2 points there, you mentioned that your writer was an unrealized strength, but you used it. So the point is, this is a dynamic model. So, you know, an unrealized strength today, if you actually then dial it up and you start to use your writer, and if you were to complete the assessment again, I'm guessing that that unrealized strength of writer, now that you're using it, is actually has moved into the realized strength, which is great, because now you're saying, now it gives me energy. And yes, I do it well. And now I'm actually using it. So then it's now a realized strength for you, which is fantastic. And just picking up your point of innovation, I remember, Joy, we had that conversation. You were saying, actually, innovation, I really want to use it, but it just isn't talking to me at the moment. So what we did was we just went to the profile and we read the definition. So I'm going to read it here for the audience. So innovation, you are highly driven to want to invent things that are better than what has been done before. You look at things from a different perspective to others and think outside the box. You look beyond what exists when coming up with new ideas, inventions and approaches. And I think what we did was we thought about what you were trying to do, achieve at the time. And I said to you, so, okay, looking at that unrealized strength, how can you dial that up and use that for the goal that you're trying to achieve? And I think once you started to think about that, I think we had a chat around the fact that you could start to actually use technology, which wasn't familiar to you at the time, because obviously we were just moving into lockdown. So you were having to do things in a completely different way and really think out the box. So you were able to acknowledge and see how you could actually really dial that innovation strength up to achieve the goal that you were trying to achieve at the time. Do you remember that?
Yes, I remembered, like, just to get on Facebook Live, I had to psych myself up every single time. So that was, like, when you look back, I'm amazed and grateful. This is a very crucial skill that everybody needs right now, and it's a skill that I don't have 6 months ago. So so it was tapping on the innovation, and I tapping on other strengths as well, to be honest, like perseverance and so on. So the beauty is, once you tap on one strength, actually you activate a series of other strengths alongside with it. So that was pretty exciting. I think that it has moved on to other areas of my life as well.
Brilliant. And sorry, just to add to that, the other thing about when something is now in your subconscious, you know, it's a bit like, I don't know if you've ever bought a particular type of car. You know, if you buy a yellow car, you see yellow cars all over the place. So it's the other thing is, once it's in your subconscious, you're now aware of your innovation. So then when it's there, then you start to think about it. It's now in my focus. So now I'm thinking about how to use that. So even if the ideas don't spring to mind immediately, that once it's in your awareness and in your focus, then actually the ideas will come to you. So I think that also happened.
Yes, definitely. I think what you focus on expands. So when you focus on your unrealized strength, it will definitely expand our opportunity for use, because suddenly you're very conscious of it. I paste my strengths profile in the cabinet in my toilet. So I'm staring at it every day when I brush my teeth and say, have I tapped on it? What can I do today? What can I do tomorrow? So I was pretty fixated and determined to activate my unrealized strengths. And I think that's why today, when you use the word innovation, I don't feel that foreign feeling anymore that I had, but that's because I really consciously had a strategy to put it easily so that I can see it every day. So you can do all these simple tricks to help you to focus on your unrealized strength. And you really should, because it's the most exciting quadrant in the strengths profile, your hidden superpowers.
So, I think that's a great idea. Having something that's visual in front of you, it really brings your focus it brings your attention to that, doesn't it? And I've seen that in organizations actually, where people have their strengths profile next to their desk. And another organization, what they did actually, the summary, they actually put that on their badge, you know, the badge that people have to get into buildings. So that everybody had their strengths profile on their badge. So I just thought that was a fantastic idea.
I think that is
to keep
so
it
exciting. It's so exciting when people talk to you. They will also have an opportunity to acknowledge your strength and bring it into the conversation, helping others to help you to keep your strengths top of mind. So, in positive psychology, we call this nudging, creating your environment such that it nudge the best out of you.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And it's also seeding the language of strengths, isn't it? That's the other thing, that because people are talking about it.
Yes, it is indeed. So let's talk a little bit about the strengths family. So
Yes,
if someone noticed that most of their unrealized strength fall into a specific strengths family, there is
yes,
a the strengths profile is divided into strengths family. For
yeah.
those of you who's not aware,
Hmm.
how
Hmm.
how can I work on more this particular strengths family?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about this, and I think a good idea is to actually think about a particular goal that you'd like to set yourself in relation to that particular strengths family. So just to give you an example,
Mm,
so if you had a lot of strengths, unrealized strengths, I should say, in your motivating family. So you're thinking about drive, growth, action, persistence. If you a lot of your strengths are in that category, the motivating work ethic is another one, of course. So could you set yourself a goal around, maybe it's a project, maybe it's about setting yourself a tight deadline where you can use many of those motivating unrealized strengths more. So that might be one example. Or if it were, for example, it was in the communicating family, which is around explaining and writing and spotlight. How can you set yourself a goal to actually dial up those unrealized strengths? And it might be in relation to training, maybe, do you want to design a training course? Do you want to put yourself out there in the spotlight by delivering that, telling the story, using your narrator? So it's about thinking about the family and thinking about a particular goal that you could set yourself, which would enable you to dial up the majority of those unrealized strengths in that family to achieve that goal.
I love your advice, Julie. I think it's awesome because then you're working on one of the component in the strengths profile, which is usage, the opportunity to use it more by
Yes,
paying attention to a goal and asking the how,
yes.
connecting the strengths with the goal. You're really then creating that opportunity, that context to use your strength, unrealized strength more. So I think that's a really great advice for unrealized strength.
And I think you're absolutely right, Joy. The power is in the how are you going to do it. So it's taking a report and taking information and actually then taking that and putting it into action. So you're asking yourself, how specifically am I going to do this? What actions am I going to take in order in order for this to happen? So you're taking the theory and you're putting it into practice. And then what happens? The person can move forward.
Awesome. Okay, so now we have kind of like zoomed in and examined the unrealized strength in all sorts of possible angles, actually.
Yes,
So
yes,
now let's zoom out a little bit. Besides strengths profile, there are obviously other strengths assessment out there as
yes,
well. So
yes.
I think that the audience probably very curious about this question. So, in your opinion, Julie, how is strengths profile different from the other strengths assessment?
Yeah, I mean, I think people would be very familiar with VIA, Values in Action, and Gallup's Strengths Finder. And as you
Mm.
know, they actually detail your strengths, but that's it. So, and that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But I suppose what Strengths Profile does, it's more of a holistic model because what we're talking about, we are talking about strengths, our realized strengths, but we're also talking about learned behaviors. They're things that we do well, but perhaps de-energize us because either we've overplayed our strengths or maybe we've actually learned to do something and we're good at it, but it never gives us any energy. So even being aware of that, how do we get our energy back around learned behaviors? And really importantly, we don't ignore weaknesses. We all have weaknesses. That's okay. None of us are perfect or should be perfect. But what Strengths Profile does is ask the question, are your weaknesses business critical? Are they going to stop you achieving your objective? And if the answer to that is yes, then we do need to look at how you can actually use your strengths to compensate for those weaknesses. Or maybe ask ourselves the question, what does good enough look like? Because we can't be great at everything. So maybe asking ourselves, where's my benchmark that I need to get to? Or maybe, is there somebody in the organization that has my weakness as a strength? Maybe we can do some job crafting or delegating to other people. So I suppose the key really is making weaknesses irrelevant. So, asking the question, are they business critical? If the answer to that is no, they're not business critical, great, just move on. Let's just embrace them and be liberated by our weaknesses, but don't focus on those weaknesses. We don't need to. We actually really just want to make them irrelevant, and we really want to focus on the things that we're really good at and give us energy. So I think the short answer to your question is Strengths Profile is a holistic model which actually encapsulates all those things that we've just discussed.
Mm. I love this question. Actually, really, I want to chip in as well because
Yes.
one of the reason why I picked strengths profile instead of being accredited in other
Yeah.
strength assessment is because it was really a no-brainer for me for
Mm-hmm.
so many reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Firstly, I like that it's being it has 4 quadrant. It makes it
Mm-hmm.
such a powerful and comprehensive tool that
Mm-hmm.
you can direct any goal towards
Mm-hmm.
because of the simple fact that it is 4 quadrant, and no other strengths assessment will actually divide your strengths into what is realized, what is
Mm-hmm.
unrealized.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this distinction is extremely important.
Mm-hmm.
Just because that is your strength doesn't mean that you're using it at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that is only highlighted in strengths profile,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
also it is the only strengths assessment that even dare to talk about your weaknesses. So
Yes.
I
Yeah.
love the
Yeah.
audacity comes the
Yeah.
spirit of the profile. It's like, look, we're all not perfect, we all have
Yeah.
weaknesses. It's perfectly okay, get over it, right? Just get
Yeah.
over yourself.
Yeah.
and uh,
Uh,
and to examine your weakness from the lens of strength.
mm-hmm.
Instead, your realized, unrealized strength. What can you tap to
Mm-hmm.
offset the weaknesses? If you need be, go ahead. Use your learned behavior. So it's challenging a person's mindset,
Mm-hmm.
um, challenging them to shift the way they think about their
Mm-hmm.
weaknesses, and to even encourage them to look for other people's strength to offset their weaknesses. So
Yeah.
for all of this reason, I love strengths profile, and I still do until today. As you can see, I still stand by my decision. I think that I
Yes.
got accredited in the right strengths assessment. It's a very empowering, comprehensive, and as I've said, holistic model. So
Mm-hmm.
I really think strengths profile is something that also can complement other strengths assessment that you take. So if you
Yes.
take VIA, you can
Yes.
think about how to use your character strength to
Mm-hmm.
support your prevalent strengths or
Yes.
vice versa. It's
Yeah.
very flexible.
Absolutely. And it's real. I mean, I think your point about, talking about weaknesses, well, this let's be real in life. Of course, we can't be, how could we ever be good at everything? That's just not humanly possible. And neither should we try to be. And I think, I think it's very liberating to think, actually, I have weaknesses, but I don't need to let them get in my way. And I think, the other thing, for me is when I looked at my weaknesses, yes, they felt like me, but I found ways of compensating for them. Writer is my weakness. I don't like writing, but I've got other strengths that are fantastic. I'm a great rapport builder. I pick up the phone and have a conversation with somebody rather than actually writing all the time. So, it enables you to think about how you can do things in a different way and use your strengths to compensate for those weaknesses if you need to.
Love it. I'm enjoying our conversation, Julie. It's always so awesome and energizing to chat with you about strengths. So
Good.
we've dived into the unrealized strengths quite a bit now. So I
Mm.
think people would probably benefit from a real case study.
Okay.
So for that, we have a very special guest that's going to come and join us so that
Mm-hmm.
Julie can discuss his unrealized strength, and you can pick from it and also learn what are the right questions to ask yourself when you look at the unrealized strength segment in your strengths profile. So I will want to, at this point, welcome Kevin to our show.
Hello, Kevin. Hi, Kevin. Lovely to meet you.
Okay, you have to unmute yourself, Kevin.
Hi, Julie. Hi,
Hi,
Joy.
Kevin.
Hi, over to you, Julie.
Hi, Kevin. Lovely to meet you.
Likewise.
So I have your strengths profile in front of me, and we're going to chat today about just for the purposes of this conversation, just about your unrealized strengths. So I can see in front of me your top 7 unrealized strengths, Kevin, are prevention, compassion, service, self-belief, planner, creativity, and incubator. And you also mentioned, I know we had a little chat earlier, and you were talking about a particular goal that you're working towards at the moment, which is, maybe you can share with the audience that the goal that you're working towards at the moment before I ask my next question.
Okay. Well, that goal happens to be in relation to cryptocurrencies.
Uh-huh.
I believe that there is a need for a better money system in the world,
Mm-hmm.
and with my IT background, that arena, Bitcoin arena, has captivated my attention. And for
Uh-huh.
the last 2 years, I've
Uh,
been amassing a lot of knowledge.
uh-huh.
But I think it's something that I can probably apply
Okay.
to the community.
Okay.
And so I'm thinking of actually developing courses or seeing how I can leverage on that to help the community and make it a win-win situation for both parties and also generate an income stream.
Okay. Okay. So is the objective that you want to develop a course for communities so that that you can share your knowledge with the community in relation to this?
It seems that way.
Okay.
In terms of developing a course, would
Okay.
be one way to reach out
Okay.
to the community and share that knowledge.
Okay. And have you got a deadline in mind in terms of when you want to achieve this by?
Uh, given that given that time optimizing and is not in the first three quadrants, but right at the bottom, I have
Okay.
not given myself any deadline.
Okay. Okay.
So that's probably something that I really need to address.
Okay. Would you like to give yourself a deadline, or is that something you'd like to use your incubator for? Because that's incubator is about thinking about things.
Oh, definitely. I think I need to set a deadline because
Okay. So okay.
otherwise procrastination creeps in.
Okay, okay. And the thing about saying something out loud and in public, Kevin, is when you've said it and publicly stated it, you're more likely to achieve that objective. So it's a bit like
Yes.
when you say, I remember when I wanted to run a marathon, I said, I'm going to do it by this date. And now I've said it out loud, I have to do it. Or I've
Okay.
declared it publicly. So what deadline would you like to set for yourself for that?
I think by October
Okay, okay. Of this year?
of this year. Yeah.
Of this year, wow. Okay, that's a tight. That's a definitely that's a challenging deadline. So that's fantastic. Phew.
Indeed, indeed.
Okay, so looking at your unrealized strengths, Kevin, which of those would you love to dial up? Not should dial up, but which of those would you be really excited to dial up, which would help you to achieve that goal that you've just set yourself to have produced or pull together that course by October?
Yes, I actually had a closer look. Um, and whilst my first inkling was incubator, I think overall I really need to dial up compassion.
Compassion.
Yes.
Okay, so you'd love to dial compassion up in relation to this particular goal.
Yes, particularly because I was listening into your earlier conversation with Joy.
Yes.
Yes, and I think the one thing that I don't do very well is actually apply compassion on myself.
Okay. Okay.
So I tend to be quite critical of myself.
Okay.
Um, so if I were looking at the four quadrants, then I'll be mourning over the weaknesses, not being able to drag myself away from that and focus
Okay.
on the strengths.
Okay. So if I was to ask you the question in relation to compassion and using it towards yourself at the moment, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 not being very compassionate at all and 10 being hugely compassionate towards yourself, where are you on that scale of 1 to 10 at the moment?
Probably a tree.
3. Okay. And for the purposes of this goal, where would you like to get to?
A 7 or an 8.
Okay, so you're 3 at the moment, and you're 7. You want to get to 7 or 8. So
Mhm.
how do you bridge that gap? How do you dial that compassion up to in order to get to a 7 or 8, Kevin?
Well, I think I probably need to stick this up in my toilet as well.
Okay, okay,
I think
okay.
I need to look at the strengths and have them more visually engaging my mind
Okay,
every single day, as
brilliant.
opposed to keeping aside the report and having it tucked away.
Okay,
Then that allows me to be distracted and go on to my own um, processes and thought processes, what have you.
okay,
So
okay. So keeping it
inside.
visually in front of you, okay, that's and putting it in front of you in your loo there. What else can you do? What else can you specifically do to dial up that compassion. So it's going to be more, it's heading towards that 7 or 8 for you. What else?
Joy and I recently began doing certain well-being related exercises that enhance mindfulness. So I think I'll incorporate those exercises to be more mindful of my strengths and unrealized strengths, and being more aware as to which ones I need to be dialing up
Okay.
during those exercises.
So I'm guessing they're positive psychology well-being exercise interventions that.
Yes,
Yes.
that's right.
Yeah. And that's, it sounds like what you want to do is create a habit of doing that, so that again, you're giving it your focus.
Yes, indeed. I think doing the assessment, but giving the language of strengths on a daily basis are two different things
Yes.
altogether.
Okay. Yeah. It's about making them commonplace, isn't it? It's making that your normality.
Yes.
What else would be helpful in relation to dialing up your compassion in relation to this goal?
I'm not too sure, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you did know the answer to that question, what would it be?
Probably dialing up the courage to actually put my strengths to fully harness my strengths. That would be something that I need to consciously do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you said having the courage to dial up my strengths, and if you don't mind me bringing your attention to self-belief, which is also on your unrealized strength list, and that's often another unrealized strength that I see often, and I love the question that's on your profile, and I use it myself often in relation to self-belief, and it's actually linked to what you've just said. And the question is, if you were to dial up if you had 10% more self-belief, what would you be doing differently? Because you talked about courage, and often it's fear that stops us from doing things, or maybe our lack of confidence. Not that I'm not saying you're lacking in self-confidence, but if you want to dial up your self-belief, what would having 10% more self-belief look like for you, Kevin, in relation to this goal?
I think when I think of the lack of courage, it's more in relation to the fear of failure
Okay.
rather than the inability to do something.
Okay.
So self-belief, even if I were to just dial it up 10%, yeah, I think that would help me to overcome a lot of the mind hurdles that I put in place.
Okay. So
You're
what
right.
would you be doing differently? So with that 10% more self-belief, what would you be doing differently? What does that look like for you? You mentioned about the mind belief. What else?
Taking action,
Okay.
taking positive action, and making things happen
Uh-huh.
instead of procrastinating and waddling with all the information and just letting time pass by.
Okay.
I think self belief would mean to me that, okay, let's get to this target and let's deliver the message that I believe the community needs to
Brilliant.
fully leverage the world of cryptocurrencies.
Brilliant. So taking action is what you said, and not procrastinating and making things happen. So what would be the smallest thing you could do? What was the smallest action you could take that would have the biggest impact in relation to the goal that you discussed earlier? Just the smallest action.
The smallest action. I actually did build a couple of presentation decks
Okay.
to about a year and a half ago, in terms of helping people understand what Bitcoin is and what cryptocurrencies are.
Okay.
I even delivered quite a number of presentations on those,
Okay.
but I've not actually revisited those decks in a while.
Okay.
So that's probably something I need to look at. The resources
Okay.
that I built not too long ago,
Okay.
but I have not fully leveraged on in
Okay.
current times.
So when you say building a couple of decks, is that one or two?
Probably one at least for
Okay.
October. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So your action that would have the biggest impact, you're the smallest action that would have the biggest impact, is building one deck that you would then be able to use to deliver the course.
Yes, I think
Okay.
that's essential.
Okay. And
Yeah.
when do you think you could do that by?
Probably within the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
That should be fine.
So whatever day it is today, it's the 31st. So 2 weeks from today, you'll be in
Mid-September.
you'll be in a position to have that deck available, so that then that is the first step towards achieving the goal of having the course available for the community.
Indeed. Yes.
Okay, brilliant. Okay. I'm not sure in terms of how much we have in terms of time, but just very briefly, Kevin, what are you taking away from this short conversation that's been helpful for you?
Leading up to this, I think with this current pandemic, I probably have been somewhat on the grieving side of things,
Mm-hmm.
in the sense that whilst I'm trying to be positive about the situation,
Mm-hmm.
there are also times where I feel rather dampened,
Mm-hmm.
my spirit somewhat dampened,
Mm-hmm.
and hearing you and Joy talk about self-compassion,
Mm-hmm.
uh, applying it to ourselves first,
Mm-hmm.
and then being able to utilize our strengths better.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was a very key message for me today.
Lovely. Yeah.
And in our short discussion live just now, um, self-belief
Mm-hmm.
being an unrealized strength is probably something I've not really dialed up.
Mm-hmm.
So that's certainly one that I want to look at and see how I can really dial up more frequently.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, following Joy, I think I had better keep this list in sight so
Mm-hmm.
that it stays in mind.
Mm-hmm. And what actions are you committing to today that will help you achieve the goal that we discussed in relation to your compassion and your self-belief? What are the actions that you're taking away?
The actions would be to to keep this visually engaged
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
for myself,
Yes.
so that I am on a daily basis more aware of
Mm-hmm.
my resources,
Mm-hmm.
um, and so that I don't beat up on myself too often
Mm-hmm.
or too harshly.
Yes.
And I think that would be a really good start already, because
Mm-hmm.
it's something that I have not done or I've procrastinated on for a while.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Anything else that you're committing to?
The goal of creating a course in cryptocurrency and
Mm-hmm.
launching it in October,
Mm-hmm.
that would be something that I really want to do. Um,
And obviously completing that deck that you said within the
yes,
next 2 weeks. Brilliant.
yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Fantastic. And how motivated, given the things that you've committed to, how motivated are you to actually achieving those 2 actions that you've committed to there?
Well, it feels good. I guess if I were to rate myself on a scale of 1 to
Yes.
10,
Yeah.
it'd be on the 8.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And where do you need to be to make it happen? Is 8 a good place for you?
8 is a good place for me after our
Okay.
conversation.
Okay.
I think prior to the conversation, it was probably a 4 or 5. Really, I think having this conversation with you certainly has shifted my perspective of my strengths,
Brilliant.
and
Okay. Well, I
even in
think
that short time.
sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, moving it from a 4 to a 5 to 8, I think is pretty good going. And I think what you've done is you've tapped into your intrinsic motivation. It's, you've looked and said what's really meaningful to me, and what what am I passionate about, and making that the center of your focus. So thank you for the short discussion. I know it was only very short, but good luck with those 2 actions. And you're absolutely right. We all need to be kinder to ourselves, don't we?
Indeed.
In these times. So thank you, Kevin. I hope
Thank you.
I hope we didn't take too much time, Joy.
Thanks, Julie.
Thank you, Kevin. It's lovely to chat to you this morning. Well, afternoon where you are.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julie, for that wonderful demonstration of the power of unrealized strength when we focus on it and tie it with a goal. And thank you, Kevin, for the courage of coming on the show to talk about unrealized strengths. I realize that talking about strengths can still be quite private for most people. So thank you for showing up anyway. And I'm so glad that you went from a 4 to an 8. I think that's magnificent. That's four notches up. That's pretty significant. So I think this is a good time for me to share a video about one of our upcoming course, Strongest Self, where we combine strengths developing and well-being. So this is a short video to share with you about the Strongest Self. Okay, so thank you so much, Julie, for coming on the show.
You're very welcome.
Okay, so now let's end the show on a high note with our superpower pose. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Till the next episode. Take care, everyone. Bye.
You're very welcome.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Julie.
Kevin. Bye, Joy. Bye. Bye.